So, who's going to control Congress in the next cycle after the midterms? This is the big debate, and this will indicate whether or not you should be investing in your political spend on the red side or the blue side, depending on what state you're in. It will probably even dictate which states to go do your investment in. So right now, the status quo is Democrats don't control the House, they don't control the Senate, and they don't control the presidency. Historically, when that's the case, the House of Representatives reverts to whatever party is not in control of the presidency. So there's only been 2 times in history where the political party has also been maintained in the House. So historical precedence is the House should go blue, should be a Democratic-run chamber after midterms. Now, the pundits will tell you that's probably going to be the case still. I actually have a contrarian opinion of this. I think the House, and I will go on record to say it, will be red. That's not because I want it to be red. That's not because I don't want it to be red or don't want it to be blue. I'm just telling you what I think the facts are. And here are the reasons. And you can tell me in the comments if you think I'm an idiot for this or if you think they're actually intelligent, but we'll see. The first reason is the Civil Rights Act being struck down as a inappropriate way to draw congressional districts. That was a big deal. The Supreme Court made that decision, and that allowed a handful of states to go and redraw their maps before this midterm cycle. My analysis says that netted Republicans probably around 10 seats, maybe 12 seats. Guaranteed, all the southern states are going to redraw their maps post that decision, but some of them didn't feel like they had the time to do it, right? So they're going to do it right after midterms. And then once they do it, that'll further add more House seats onto the red side of the aisle because the main places that were impacted by these racially drawn congressional maps were in the South. For those of you that don't know what the ruling was, the Supreme Court said it was inappropriate and or racially biased to draw maps based on race. So in the South, they carved out specific districts to represent African Americans or Black people. And the Supreme Court said, hey, that's kind of racist. Like, don't do that. We shouldn't be using race as the reason to draw congressional maps. I personally totally agree with that. Race should have nothing to do with it. It should be geographically based, and whoever lives in those areas, they live in those areas. Like, we shouldn't look at race for anything. That is maybe not the most popular opinion to have. Depends, I guess, what side of the aisle you're on. But I 100% think that race has no business in it. It should be based on what your region needs and what the area needs. And we shouldn't draw these crazy, like, looks like a first grader cut out a piece of cardboard and it's squiggled all over the place to draw your congressional districts. So that change happened, and that is netting House Republicans more seats for sure. The next thing that happened is President Trump has made a massive impact in a few key voting demographics that you can't really poll for. The first one is, if you're an Iranian American, you were probably a Democrat voter before what happened in Iran. Trump is the only one that took action against the regime that all those Iranian Americans consciously chose to leave and come to America. I have spoken to many Iranian Americans, and they are super passionate about this. They want to see Trump go even further, and they want to see regime change. We'll see if that's a thing that happens. I feel like it kind of already has happened, where there's definitely new leadership in Iran. They're definitely operating slightly differently. And if they keep screwing around, I think they're going to screw around and find out how serious Trump is about getting this problem solved. But we'll see. But I think they're definitely voting Republican now more so than they were in the past. And I don't think any of the polls are reflecting that, because how do you poll for that right away? Next, if you're a Venezuelan American, you were probably voting Democrat before. And there's high concentrations of these people in New Mexico and some other spots, certainly Miami, but Texas as well. Like some of these districts definitely had some Venezuelan voters that I think are 100% voting Republican now, partly because they were really happy with the changes they're seeing in Venezuela. I've talked to a handful of Venezuelan Americans that are very excited that there's an embassy being built in Venezuela, that flights are starting to happen back to Caracas. So there's good movement happening there. And again, hard for historical polls to catch this kind of stuff because it hasn't really happened before. It's a big demographic shift. Now, if you're a Cuban American, you were probably voting Republican before. And I think you're more motivated now to vote Republican going forward based on the stuff Trump is doing in Cuba and intervening in Cuba. So I think that's a positive sign overall. Between those 4 things, I think it's going to be an extremely tight race, but Republicans close the gap. Additionally, if you look at the polls from what they were last midterm cycle to what they are this midterm cycle, the Democrats had a much larger lead than what they have right now. And the polls, in my opinion, are normally skewed more to Democrats. There's a lot of reasons for this. People that answer their phones, how they do polling, there's a million problems with this. They try to account for it, but they never seem to get it quite right. I firmly believe that it will be a Republican-controlled House coming out of this. So what does that mean for you? That means that Ken Calvert, who's currently the chairperson, has a higher chance of retaining. Oh, but wait. Ken Calvert happens to be in California, and Gavin Newsom is going to gerrymander his state to gerrymander away Ken Calvert's district. So I don't know how anyone thinks this is a smart move to take the most powerful appropriator in the entire Congress and get rid of his seat that's in your state. But that's what seems to be happening. Gavin Newsom is going to gerrymander away Ken Calvert's seat. So Ken Calvert will no longer be the guy. So who will be the next person? I have my opinions. I think Steve Womack out of Arkansas will be the next person. That's like the Bentonville district, the Walmart district, if you will. That's a big change. So understanding that and knowing where to go, if you're a new company and you're trying to think, where should I hang a shingle at? Where should I start my business at? And I still want to do stuff for defense. Maybe I should go to Arkansas to hang a shingle there, because if Steve Womack is the guy that takes control of the House Appropriations Committee, I mean, his history shows he's an Arkansas supporter for sure. There's not a huge bench of military stuff going on in Arkansas. So like, why wouldn't you go to Arkansas? That is 100% a play that I'm recommending to my clients. You know, I'm not a lobbyist. I just try to read the tea leaves, socially engineer whatever I can. And I'm telling you, I think that is a good play. And there's a better than likely a chance that Steve Womack is in a powerful position going forward. Either way, even if he's just the ranking member, he'll be in a powerful seat, and eventually Republicans will regain control if they lose control. And my prediction is incorrect, but I don't think it is incorrect. So that's a big deal, and that's where I would be thinking. Betty McCollum, I think, will still be up in Minnesota. Betty's team, they're huge supporters. When I was in the government, they sent a ton of money into my program elements that I controlled. And I've always been a fan of a lot of the companies that come out of Minnesota. So it's not a bad thing if she takes control. I don't always agree with the broader political scene that may be represented by Democrats, but she's a very reasonable human, and her and Ken Calvert have always gotten along really well. I am very confident that if she does take control of the Appropriations Committee for the House, that good things will happen. And she's always been pretty pragmatic when it comes to like, hey, we should invest in this stuff for defense. We need to short circuit the budget cycle. So if blue is going to win the House, like Minnesota is a really good place to go and invest, especially if you're a new company. They don't have a super deep bench. I work with a lot of the defense companies that are up there, and I can tell you they're great companies, and there's more space, especially if she's the chairwoman, because she'll have significantly more leeway on how much money they can do in congressional interest items. So that's an interesting play. Then you have people that are in the ranks coming up. Susie Lee, she is out of Nevada, good Democrat. She's done some good stuff for some of my clients in the past, and I am confident that she is in the conversation at a minimum to take over once Betty McCollum decides to retire. If Ken Calvert is no longer in Congress, I think that accelerates when Betty decides she wants to retire. Additionally, I think it accelerates her thinking on retirement if the House stays red, because it's no fun being in the minority, frankly. Like, you want to be in control, you want to be able to push your influence. So, it'd be a sad day if she leaves, because I do think she's done a lot of good stuff, at least for defense appropriations. But at the same time, like, it's a reality. Like, eventually she will leave. Her and Ken Calvert are super, super tight. I've been to many events where they're best friends. I mean, they hang out with each other. They're joking with each other all the time. It is not the political divide that you would normally see between left and right. There's no real animosity between them. Sometimes they'll joke about the other party's main platform, whatever the topic is of the day. But overall, they actually really admire and appreciate each other. And that's really good to see, right? At some point, Americans have to come together. We can't be left and right. We have to just be American. And I think they've always demonstrated that. So it'll be interesting to see, as people change over and new people are in the seats, what happens. The next you have Mitch McConnell. So he's been leading the Senate Appropriations Committee for, a long time. And he is not healthy. Like, I would not be surprised if he dies. And again, he's really old. Like, we should have term limits. We should have term limits. I'll say it a million times. We should have term limits. There's no reason for him to still be not really even coherent in Congress. Like, there's just no reason for it. He should be gone. Pelosi should be gone. They're all way too old. And you can call me ageist. You can call me whatever you want, but they are way too old, and we need term limits. If you were to ask me who really runs the country for the last 40 plus years, almost 50 years, it's been those two, right? They're pulling the strings. And I'm like, it breeds corruption because they've just been around too long. So I would love to see him gracefully move on. Like, he's already announced he's not running again. He's definitely not capable of running again. I wish he would just give up all his chairman seats, get out of the way so like progress can happen. But power seeks to preserve itself. It's just a fact of life. Power always seeks to preserve itself. And he, for whatever reason, his team is holding on. It's not pretty. It's kind of like watching Biden at the end. Like, he clearly wasn't fit for the job, and all of a sudden, like, people are just making up stuff saying he is. Like, McConnell is not fit anymore. He is struggling. So you're going to see a change there. What does that change look like? That's a change in leadership. You're not going to see a change in the party that's in control, because I firmly believe the Senate will be red. Every analysis says that, and the map kind of says that too. So I'm confident the Senate stays red. If that's the case, and the Senate stays red and the House stays red, Trump's going to stay red, right? He's not changing. You're going to see a sustained momentum that you've never seen in this country in a long time, where you have the party control, staying in control without having a bunch of investigations, things like, regardless of whether or not you think investigations should occur, you like Trump, you don't like Trump, doesn't really matter. If all those things occur, the priorities of the nation won't be able to move forward. They'll be mired down in, different, cases, different political drama of investigations, everyone trying to get a soundbite. I mean, you guys may or may not know this, but like, each one of those politicians, they actually have their team write scripts for their questions so they can try to get a soundbite, for their YouTube channels, for their TikTok channels, so they can, in their Instagram reels, so they can look like they're playing hardball with these politicians. And they're all just clickbait, gotcha nonsense that we don't need our politicians doing that. We need them actually like creatively thinking about ways to move the country forward. And I think if we have complete Republican control in the House and Senate after midterms, that will bode really well for continued progress for the country. Like, I'm tired of the yo-yo effect. Frankly, I want to see us just pick a way and like go that way. I like the spending with military, because obviously that impacts the kind of work that I believe in and stuff we do. I believe the armed services need more support. We have the largest budget we've ever had. There's a 50% increase to that budget is what's been proposed. But again, there's so much grift in all this stuff that we just want to see more money go to the troops. And if we can do that, we get more supplies, we get more capability in, we can give them more opportunity. I can tell you that the general schedule, the payment that the federal workers are getting, is nowhere near what they are worth. I was a federal employee, and we are dramatically underpaid for the responsibility that gets levied on us for the dollars we're spending. I was responsible for billions of dollars in spend at certain points in my career, like billions of dollars in spend, and I was making $100,000. Like, whatever. I ended my time in the government as a GS-15, $160 something thousand. Like, that's not a ton of money when you're responsible for that much money on the other side. And I can tell you, the people that support the defense contractors on the other side of the table are making that much more money than the guys on the inside. So you're already at a disadvantage because they've been battle tested through corporate America. They have whole teams of people supporting. So like, how do you expect a fair, good negotiation when you have these big disparities? So yeah, I want to see more money go to the Defense Department. I want to see our civilian workforce get paid better, because I think they're way underpaid. Especially at the top side. The lower end of the federal employment is actually probably pretty fair and maybe overpaid for what I see in the marketplace, but the top side, dramatically underpaid for the responsibility levels that they have. I've always believed this. And yeah, maybe I wasn't unbiased because I was one of those people, but I can tell you, when I left government, I made a lot more money, and like significantly more money than I was when I was in government. And that's an important data point. Like, that's a real data point that I think everyone knows. Like, you want to lose your best people to private industry, because you will when the numbers get 2 or 3, 4 times what they were making inside the machine. And that's unfortunate, because then your leaders that are left over, a lot of it's time-based, how people move up inside the civilian ranks. Again, not ideal, but that's part of a bureaucracy. They're the people that are left that didn't leave. Some of them are great patriots and they're doing it for service. And I know a lot of people like that, but there's some that are just, they never had the opportunity to leave because they weren't that good in the first place. And all of a sudden they're the last person standing and now they're the ones that have the job. That's an unfortunate scenario where now you have bad leaders at the top, which have a negative impact all the way through the workforce. And I got to experience that too. So I'm a huge fan of seeing money flow where it needs to flow to get things done properly inside the military, inside the civil service, and who controls Congress matters. And you heard it here first. I think the House will stay in control with Republicans, and I think the Senate will stay with Republicans, but it's going to be close and it's going to be fun to watch. All that being said, please like and subscribe. If you have some comments on what I said, drop them in the video. Like, I took a stance here. So if you guys think there's something I was off on or my analysis was wrong, let me know about it. I'm curious. I want to learn too. I'm not perfect. I want to learn. And all this stuff does matter for where the money's going to flow in the future. Thanks and have a great day. Bye.